Everyone, welcome back to another episode of the 5 and 20 podcast by Remarkable Academic Foods. I'm your host, Joshua Miller, where we have at least another 5 questions in 20-something minutes. And today's topic is food safety culture. And don't worry, this is not about a bunch of checklists. This is so much bigger than that. And so make sure you stick in for this casual conversation with Tia Glaive, co-founder of Catalyst LLC, where they build sustainable food safety cultures. Amongst her many achievements, Tia is a certified master coach and founder of Black Professionals in Food Safety and Quality, and she has led food safety culture with a very popular food retailer and manufacturer in New York City. So super excited for this conversation. Make sure you stick around for all the value that's going to come. Tia, thank you for joining in for this episode. And to kick things off, icebreaker question real quick, what is your guilty pleasure snack?
Ooh. I would say right now it's probably Ben & Jerry's ice cream.
Oh my goodness.
My husband and I, we've been keeping a few pints in the freezer, which is, it's so funny.
Yes.
I got to stop snacking on ice cream, but I would say that's what it is right now.
That is my kryptonite, Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Yes, many good flavors to count. Awesome. Well, again, this is more of a casual conversation and questions, and these questions are not like, it's not like right and wrong, right? Food safety culture, it's very subjective. There's many answers, many right answers depending on the organization. Before I kick further into this, again, casual conversation, my background, when you first saw it, for anyone that's watching the video, I've had this question come up. Do you think it's real or fake when you first saw it?
When I first saw it,
yes,
I assumed it was real.
Okay.
But I saw it and I was like, ooh, that's a really nice background. Because I always think about backgrounds because mine's pretty like,
yes.
I really had to add this. And I have another shelf right above it that you can never
yes.
do. But I had to add something. Otherwise, it looked like I was in like an institution. So I had to do something. So that's what I did. So when I saw yours, I'm like, ooh, I really like the green. I love the decorations. But now since you asked, I don't know.
Yes. So I changed the light. This is the first episode where I changed the color of the light because it's real. And I get a lot of questions. People ask me whether it's on Zoom meetings or from the podcast, is that real or fake? And I was like, I guess I need to make it look rougher. I don't know. We inherited the wall, so that we can't take full credit for that. But my wife did the painting and the decorating and all that. So,
wow, she did a great job. So would you change the color of the light that's right behind you?
I did it today, the first time ever. Okay. So maybe people can start paying attention to that and be like, wait, is that real or fake?
They also could have maybe looked at the clock behind you. I mean, you can't quite tell the time, but does the time change?
Exactly. We'll see. Watch the episode. You have to watch the whole episode to find out. All right. So let's talk about Catalyst. So why don't you describe what is Catalyst and why was the coaching-based program started?
Yes. So Catalyst was founded by myself and my business partner, Jill Stuber. And our whole mission is to transform how people lead in food. And our goal is that they show up empowered and that they're able to live authentically so that they can achieve more and enable business growth, which ultimately, right, we're hired to enable business growth, to accomplish our goals. But one thing that I think the conversations are starting to happen more around as we talk about culture is just the people aspect. People have to have the skills to be able to influence, inspire, lead, especially in a space like food safety and quality, because it can get heavy, right? Like we're talking about, is someone going to be sick, right? Or is someone going to die from our products? Or if someone going to enjoy our product to the highest quality and not buy from us again, right? So some of those decisions can be heavy on us. Mm-hmm. And where we don't have the right soft skills to help lead other people that's also experiencing this, we could fall into situations where our people feel stressed and burnt out and overworked. And myself and Jill, before we started Catalyst, we've been in those positions where we felt burnt out, stressed, overworked, or felt like we did not have the right soft skills in order to inspire our team and be a great leader for our team. And so when Jill and I met, it's funny because like if you go to our LinkedIn, we're actually sharing our story of how we connected and how we created Catalyst. But we really just found this passion between us of helping other people step into leadership roles and lead from this place of authenticity, and really be able to bring their whole self to work, at work, at home, wherever they are, that's leading and interacting with people. And so Catalyst was sort of like this, it's almost like, I don't even want to call it a brainchild, because we've individually had our ideas around it. And then we just happened to meet one another, have conversations, talk to people about what we do, when we really realized like, man, we should be doing this full time. And this is exactly what the industry needs, not just in food safety, but within food as a whole, if we want to get better around culture. And so at Catalyst, we focus on developing leaders. Both of us are certified coaches. And so we lean heavily into coaching principles, because coaching is really there to help you discover yourself and help, through that discovery, also help with how you interact with others. And it's just it allows for space to practice, concepts. It allows for space for reflection, which is exactly what leaders need in order to become better leaders. And we need better leaders if we want a better culture. So it all kind of ties together on the work that we're doing around culture in the industry. We fit right in, and it's a passion of ours. So we've already made an impact, and we hope to make an even bigger impact on the industry as the years go on.
Wow. Yeah. If you would say food safety culture to, most people that are in school food service, they would probably start drilling down those checklists and all your food safety practices in place. And it's much bigger than that, right? It's the people focus I love is what you guys are doing. And that's so, so important. And you're right, often overlooked.
Yeah.
So, and with that in mind, what is food safety culture?
Yeah, great question. And I'm glad you brought up checklists, because food
Mm-hmm.
safety culture is not checklists. And it's hard sometimes being in food safety and quality. We are so used to audits, and we're trying to be compliant with audits. We're trying to be compliant with regulatory. But food safety culture is bigger than that. I like to break it down. There's this infographic. I'm happy to share it if anyone wants to see it. But it breaks down the concepts of food safety culture. And there's one piece of it that's food safety, which is our food safety management systems. It's the outcomes of those systems. So for instance, it will be things like, did we complete our PMs, this quarter? Or are we following our allergen control plan? Are we doing our checks properly? Those pieces all make up that food safety quality, if you're including quality management system. And then those outcomes are, have we had any recalls? Did we have any environmental failures? What are we doing around those environmental failures? So that's important to food safety culture, because I would say that's the foundation, right? That's the food
Yeah,
safety. The other part
absolutely.
is culture. And that's the people side of things. It's those soft skills, the leadership, human skills, if you will. And so that's really around not just company organizational values and beliefs and language and communication, all of those things. It's also the people of the organization and their values and how it relates to the organization, their beliefs, how it relates to what they do, the assumptions around what's happening in their organization, right? All plays within culture. I recently did a talk, and I was explaining the breakdown of food safety culture. And I talk about how people leave out the culture piece all the time. We ask, what are you doing around food safety?
Ironic.
They ask, we ask, what are you doing around food safety culture? And they start talking about food safety management systems and
Mm-hmm.
outcomes they want. And that's great. But hardly anyone talk about what they want from a people standpoint. And if you look at the definition of culture, that's what it's talking about. Norms, behavior, social cues that your team, do together. That's where you have to focus if you want to focus around food safety culture, as well as those other things, right, which are important. But if you're not also focusing on your people and how they show up every day, if they're burnt out, stressed, or if they're happy and learning and innovative in your space, if that's also not a part of your food safety culture, then you're missing one of the biggest piece of the puzzle.
Absolutely. I feel like this should be like that was so deep. I should be snapping my fingers here like poetry. So deep is so true.
It's
And
what we do, so we talk about it often. But it's something like as we talked with people, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's right. The word culture is in food safety culture. I
yes.
should be thinking about how my people show up and how they interact with one another, and what are those barriers, right, that we need to remove or build a bridge around, right, for our people so that they can be engaged and work on our food safety systems, right, and ensure that we have the right outcomes."
Yeah, and I have one example. I was speaking with a client the other day, and they mentioned food safety was a big overlooking
Mm-hmm.
zone for them right now. And he understood food safety, but the team members in the actual food service department didn't. And he's like, I'll ask them, what were, did you take your temperatures, right? And temperatures is a food safety practice, but he gets looked at like he has three heads. So now we have a culture concern there as well, right? Because not only did you not do the practice itself, but we're not even able to communicate on the same level
Right.
about what the concerns are.
Right, exactly. And I think that's a great example to even think about, if you have this culture in place, right?
Yep.
People are on board with, oh, okay, what do I need to do? This is important. This aligns with my values. It aligns with the values of the organization. How do I learn? How do I learn this food safety piece? When a lot of times we think, oh, let's focus on the food safety piece and the why, and people are just going to jump behind it. But
Absolutely
if
not.
it doesn't connect, exactly, which we know, right? Safety. But if it doesn't connect with their own values and beliefs and assumptions around what they're doing, if that's not connecting, then we can tell them the why behind it all day. I mean, even people in their regular lives, a lot of them don't follow temperature controls. So
Yep.
they're thinking, right, and we see it on social media all the time. Well, I've done this for years and nothing has happened, right? So people are trying to use what they know, but when you
Yep.
connect it to something bigger than they are, when you connect it to something that they value or believe or they have passion around, then it makes sense, right? And then that's when we also see behaviors change even within in their own
Hmm.
lives. I worked with a group who, the way that they thawed food was on the counter, right? And so
That's how I grew up.
me too, leave it out all day, right? And it was ready
Yes.
for dinner. And when I came into this facility, which to be fair, they did not have a food safety and quality person there until I got there. And one of the things is that they were thawing pesto. They had in the sink and they just had it out thawing pesto. And I'm like, hi guys, we can't do that here. But the conversation that I really had with them is that I know that we do activities in our own homes, but this is why it's important to do it differently here. And the connection that I had for them is that we want to make sure we're doing absolutely everything we can do to make sure that our consumers do not get sick. And when we don't follow the proper thawing process, there's a chance that someone could get sick. At home, it might just be me and my husband, but
Yeah.
when we're talking about people who are buying our product, it could be a small child, it could be a whole family, it could be millions of people, because that's
Yep.
who we're trying to serve. And for them, that was a connection, because they weren't able to before they weren't able to think outside of what they were so used to doing, even within their own homes. And I remember having the conversation, and it was really like, well, okay, well then how do we do it? And I'm like, you got to think about, we need it 5 days before we need it, we got to put it in the refrigerator. And it was seamless for them to change it. They just didn't know or understood the value behind it. And that had, I rolled out a new procedure. They understood it. They ran with it, right? But if I didn't connect their real value to it, then there's still this room of like, well, we've been doing it for 5 years before you even showed up and everything was fine.
And that's huge. So, in relation to food allergy safety, for me, the connection really came when, working in a college campus program,
Yeah.
having to have face-to-face conversations with the students with those allergies and understanding
Mhm.
what it means when we're not doing our part,
Yeah.
and how it affects their day and their body. And that was like, it was like instant connection for me. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, this is so much bigger. Like, food safety, we often pay attention to like the bacteria and the time temperature and all that. And it's like, but then that's when it became serious for me. Like, oh, allergies is just as much a part of it as anything else.
Yeah.
So that was a big, so having a student that can be that advocate, that can, not necessarily putting them on the stage, but having their story heard with your team of, this is why it's important, I think.
Yes, that's fantastic.
So in terms of components, so we talked a lot about, what components of culture is. You want to go ahead and review those a little bit again? So soft skills is one of those, right?
Soft skills, understanding the understand audience, understanding your organization, what values, beliefs, assumptions. Those are like the three I start with.
Yep.
And then depending on where you are in the organization, I almost like to think about it. If you are senior leadership, your role is to set that vision. Where are you going? What values do you want this organization to have? What does culture look like, feel like, smell like? What do you hear, right? All of those aspects around culture, like what is it? How do you set that vision, right? And how do you inspire people to step up, right, to what you want the organization to be? And then I kind of think about these middle managers, that they are ultimately responsible for translating this
Yep.
vision that's written so well, right? With all the right words and all the things where everyone's like, yeah, right.
Another PDF.
Exactly, exactly. A beautiful presentation, but that's their job, right? That's their job. They should do that work. Middle management, which I would definitely say these are the people that must have those soft skills, because they are the ones that have to translate what their senior leadership is saying through these presentations, through these PDFs. They have to translate that and relate it to the people who are working in the facilities, the people that are doing what I like to say the executioner,
Yeah.
the people who are executing the work, right? And so they have to translate and then help inspire the people that are doing the work, executing the work, to live up to that vision, to live up to those values, and really help them connect their own personal values to these values of the organization and how they play in it and what role they play in. And that's a huge role to be in, and people don't think about it that way, but really your middle managers, I say, are the drivers of culture, because they're the ones that's going to their people and saying, you know what, we rolled out this vision. I don't believe it, but whatever, right? Or they're the ones that's saying, I know we're not there, but I know we can get there, and this is why. And having those conversations and providing feedback to senior leaders. And then those executors, right? They're the ones that are making it happen every day. And they are the ones that's actually setting a lot of your culture. And so they are the ones that you really want to lean into. What are their norms? What are their values? What are their beliefs? What are their assumptions? Who can you make your champions, right? Who are the ones that's going to spread the message of culture in everything that they do? Talk about culture, especially food safety culture, when you're not even in the room. So identifying those people and nurturing those people and ensuring that they have the right tools to be those champions, that's a part of culture. And so this piece is all company context is another way of saying it. It's really those characteristics that you want a part of your culture, that you see that are a part of your culture. And so that's the people side of things. And then when we're talking about food safety culture, the food safety side is your food safety management systems, right? Like you can't have a food safety culture if you don't have the necessary programs in place in order to support it. So that's your management system, and that's those outcomes. Do you have the right management systems in place to drive the type of outcomes that you want to see?
Yeah, and that all sounds very, very important. I think you touched a little bit on my next question, which is prioritizing. So, how can schools prioritize it? It seems like a lot of it to drive it home really has to be communication between top level management and your middle management, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We get this question all the time on where to start. And one thing that you said early on is that culture looks different at every organization because we all have our unique people, right? We have our unique thing going on. We make our unique products, and we want to be unique in the marketplace. And so that means that we have a unique culture. And so where you start honestly depends on what you need in your organization. Now, if you feel like that, man, we have a terrible culture and we really need to start from the ground up, I would
Mm.
start with understanding and learning your audience, which is your people at your organization.
Yeah.
Going back to those values, beliefs, assumptions, what already exists? What do your people already feel about the organization? Where do they feel the organization should go towards? What do they love about it? What do they not love about it? And understanding those pieces of it, sometimes people feel alienated because most of the people speak Spanish in the facility, but there's no Spanish documentation. And so,
Mm.
like, just that, and this is something that someone recently talked to me about, which is why it's top of mind for me.
Yeah.
Just that can alienate your people, and you're thinking, man, we have all these documentation, why are they not following it? Why are they not excited about what they do? And it's just because they feel alienated because English is not their first language, and all of their documentation is in English. So just translating, just using Google Translate, right?
Yeah.
Do something simple, or connecting to someone that can translate your documentation. Just that change can change the environment. And so you didn't need to roll out a new process, right? You didn't need to have a town hall. You didn't need to do any of those
Yeah.
things. You just need to understand your audience. So if I tell anyone where to start, it's there. Understanding your audience. What are their current values, beliefs, assumptions around their organization? How does that relate to their values, beliefs, assumptions of themselves, and what they value? And then start thinking about and building a strategy around how do you help close that gap? How do you help them understand and get the buy-in to what type of culture you want the organization to have, which is, I think, is the second step, is really figuring out who do you want to be, right? If you
Yeah.
know who your audience is, who do you want to be as an organization? And now let's think about third step, which is the meatiest step, and the step that takes the longest, is to close that gap. And that happens over time. It is not quick at all. A lot of places use like a 5-question survey, where they're trying to gauge people on how they are every day. And I think that's great. But if that's the only thing you're doing, then it's not enough.
No,
And
it's
so, like,
not.
really, that bridge is the hardest part. And, I'm going to go back to soft skills, is that if your leaders do not have the soft skills needed to build that bridge, then that's where you start seeing trouble and honestly not movement in culture. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say to start. Understand your audience, understand where they are, build a strategy around where your organization wants to go, and then start building that strategy on how do you bridge those two.
Love it. And like you said a little bit, this can be a little bit easier said than done. So, what external resources, if they feel like, you know what, we don't have this, we're not ready for it, don't know where to start, where can what resources exist for them?
Yeah, well, there are a ton of resources. I'll first start with Catalyst. This is what we do. We help
Absolutely.
organizations build their cultures, build a strategy around, help their leaders with their soft skills, leadership skills, human skills. That's our bread and butter. We are also food safety nerds, so we also consult. So if there's anything in that food safety management and output area of food safety culture, we definitely help with that. So let me say that's your paid version.
Yeah.
If you need a partnership, we are here to support you. There's also a lot of free tools out there. We talked a little bit before we got started that Jill and I, we do a weekly LinkedIn Live called Real Talk Food Safety, where we talk about what's happening in the food safety world, connecting it to leadership and soft skills. That's free every single Wednesday at noon Eastern time, that we get on and have conversations. So, tuning in to Real Talk, tuning into other webinars that groups do, such as IFT, IAFP, and there's a lot of local groups. There's a lot of groups that's even specific to sanitation or to microbiology. Wherever you feel like you need more information, there's plenty of webinars, free webinars out there to get information. And then there's also a lot of papers and a lot of articles around food safety culture. You know, if you are an organization that's looking at GFSI or Global Food Safety Initiative schemes like SQF or FSSC, BRC, then they have produced a white paper that describes food safety culture and the maturity of food safety culture, which is great. A ton of articles. If you are tuned in to QA Magazine, they're officially Quality Assurance and Food Safety Magazine, but QA Magazine, you'll be able to find them, or Food Safety Magazine. FoodSafetyNews.com is also a great resource. Again, just free resources that you're able to learn about food safety culture and start thinking about how can you implement different things within your organization. But you're absolutely right. It's not easy to do, and it's not going to happen overnight. So, really understanding, what am I going to work on over these next few months? What am I going to work on over these next year? And how can I build upon it year after year is key.
Yes, so true. And so many resources. It's really just a matter of getting out there and looking to start. And, for me, in terms of who's going to benefit from food safety culture, it's everyone. It's not just, I feel like food safety is often pinpointed to, it's just the food and the students. Well, no, it's also, the people, when you're really talking about food safety, the entire ecosystem of it, it's also the workplace. It's the people that are actually preparing the food. Are they in a safe environment? Are they do they have the right tools to operate safely, to protect themselves too? So there's so much that goes into it.
Exactly. And when you talk about like schools and food service, this group is so important when it comes to food safety culture, because when we look at the numbers around how many illnesses we have, hospitalizations and deaths, according to the CDC, those numbers have not changed. And many of those numbers are coming from our food service, restaurants, areas. And when we talk about food safety culture and the people that are handling the product, but also our consumers and how they think about food safety culture, because again, they're the ones that's working in our restaurants, they're the ones that's working in food service. It's important for us to connect those two and make sure that we're paying attention to the food service world, restaurant world, even in schools, right? Because you're right, it impacts all of us. And it's important for each of us to understand food safety culture and what part we play in it.
Exactly. And so this was a great conversation. Who would have thought food safety culture could be this fun? I definitely enjoyed it. And, if for anyone that may be thinking, wow, this really got me thinking, I wish, I can reach out and see how else we can work with Tia and Catalyst and Jill. So where can people go to connect and learn more?
Absolutely. Yes, you can connect with me. You can always send me an email. It's just tia@foodsafetycatalyst.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, so please connect with me there. Send me a message. I'm happy to connect.
And I don't think we spelled Catalyst for the audience, in case anyone doesn't know.
Yes.
C as in cat, A as in apple, T as in Tom, A as in apple, L as in Larry, Y as in Y, S as in Sally, T as in Tom. I was not gonna off the top of my head find a Y.
I know. Yawn. I'm like the worst. I feel like I need to learn like the actual what is it called? The military uses it. Like,
yes. I know exactly where you're talking. Yes,
I need to learn the real alphabet, because I get stuck. Like, why, as in
For
why.
sure. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in for yet another episode. And thank you, Tia, for joining in. You are for everything you're doing, and especially with coming on this podcast, and also a remarkable academic food ambassador, which is everyone. It's not just about my brand, it's just people that are remarkable and what they're doing to help the academic world space. So thank you for everything you're doing. And everyone, until next time, I'm your host, signing off.